Well, good morning and welcome back to another week on my allotment. A very warm welcome to you all. Talking of warm, I thought I'd start with something slightly different this week. Before I can go out when the sun starts to come up and have a look up the allotment and see what's going on, I always start in the shed. I've been here quite a while now. The fire is roaring. I've had my first brew, the kettle's on a rolling boil, and my family think I'm stark raving mad for doing this. I get out of a perfectly warm bed, drive up here in the pitch black, put my lights on, light the fire, and then sit for an hour or more. But it's my time. If you know, some people will understand that, and some will never understand it. But yeah, I love it. It's just a moment to sit quietly with a brew and think, or not. Anyway, you know, like I say, some will get it, some won't. But I love my shed. I love this little area with the tool shed, my little bit in the middle where when it's hammering with rain I can sit, and there's something sort of comforting about hearing the rain hammering on the polycarbonate roof, and I'm perfectly dry underneath it. So the day promises to be a dry one, and I've got lots to do. So we'll now revert back to something a little more normal. Well, the sun is up, the light is cast on my allotment, and I can see everything, what I've done and what I've got to do. So I think without further ado, I'll take you around and show you what I've done this week. Then I'm going to have another brew and some breakfast, and then I'll get cracking on today's efforts. So let's have a look around. Well, it's down here on the lower plot that I've spent most of my week, or the time that I've had up here. So I have weeded the leek bed, and if you can see through there, I've carried on cutting out the comfrey and the nettles and all the mess that had accumulated over the summer months. So that's a lot tidier now. These cucumbers, La Diva, have been an absolute revelation. I've grown cucumbers every year I've had the allotment, usually in the greenhouse at home. But I have to say, this year, these cucumbers are fantastic. And here we are, midway through October. And I'll probably take my last picking today. But the fact that I'm picking cucumbers outdoors as we approach November, I think is wonderful. And we have used an awful lot of them in juices, as well as the normal convention of salads. I never tire of that sunrise over the Severn Estuary. I think I'll move to a different location to explain the rest. So this bed and the one on the left of it, as I look, had the pumpkins, and the pumpkins have all been harvested, and in fact I've got another 9 on my picnic bench, and I'm going to take those down the farm shop this morning. But here I cleared all the detritus, and I'm putting in a frame here. My mum's got some autumn fruiting raspberries, and she doesn't want them. She wants to return that part of her garden to lawn, and so she's offered them to us, and we were with her yesterday. But they're still fruiting, so she's going to keep them a few more weeks, and when she's finished with them I will dig them up, and a few of them will go in along there next to the fig. I've put these posts in and I've braced them. I shall put the wire on today, and that's ready to take my mum's autumn fruiting raspberries. We'll see. And the bed next to it, again, more pumpkins and a couple of butternuts, but that's all been cleared, and the rhubarb has all been cleared away, and that has had compost put under the membrane, weeded, and is all looking very good and is ready, set for the spring. So I'll show you a few clips now of me sorting that out during the week. Pile of old raspberry canes is a job I've got waiting with the chipper, and I can't go under them obviously, but the rest of this path has now been finished off with fresh cardboard and new chippings. Looks a lot tidier for it, suppressing the weeds, so I'm very happy with that. So that's now all of my allotment paths chipped and cleared. You can see there one of the underground pipes I've got running my irrigation system, and that's been running this week. We've had some really heavy rain. Obviously large parts of Scotland and Wales had terrible flooding with the latest storm, and as usual we don't get it as bad as other parts of the country, but we have had heavy rain and this drainage system has been running, and I just need to dig out and clear more of it so that it's not blocked and backed up when the further rains arrive, which they inevitably will. I do like this membrane system. I've told you before I picked it up from a National Trust walled garden where all their rhubarb was contained with membrane like this, and that sign there is just reminding me that last spring that is the rhubarb plant that I forced, and so I won't be doing that again. I'll pick one of the other three here and put that barrel over it and have some beautiful tender sweet forced rhubarb in the spring. Of course, allotments and kitchen gardens are as much about the failures as they are about the successes, and I'm sad to report that my winter green manure has not been a total success. This was meant to be a bed of field beans. Well, it's a bed of field bean. There, one. Oh, no. Tell a lie. There's a second one there. Yeah, not a complete success. Maybe I just got a duff packet of seed. I don't know. But here again, that was meant to be field beans. Nothing showing. But there you go. And this was a different kind of green manure. It said winter mix, and nothing came up. Nor did it in that bed there. So yeah, I'm not saying I've lost hope of doing it again in the future, but it's all about the mix. I mean, I don't know what this plant is, I have to say, but that one and the one behind it could not look more lush, and again it's a different mix, and it couldn't be more successful. Anyway, failures and successes, that's what it's all about. Very briefly, before the leaves fall, these blackberry bushes that go over the arch, the colour in the leaves is stunning, and it is matched, as you'll see in the background, by those beautiful blueberry bushes. I mean, in a week or two the leaves will be gone and winter will be thoroughly here, but just for a brief moment the colour, the autumn colour, is very, very rich, and I love it. Well, this is the asparagus bed. The asparagus has now been cut down, and I have sieved some more of my allotment compost and given that a good mulch. So that's put to bed for the winter, and next spring, fingers crossed, I will get my first crop. Cannot tell you how much I'm looking forward to that. And this Jonah Gold apple, they are really tasty, sweet apples. I've had a few. Those small ones that are left on the tree, when I go to pick them, they're not coming away from the plant, so I'm not going to force them. I'll try again today and maybe in a few more days. But that's the final pickings. But the apples off that tree and my other Granny Smith down the bottom, I have now put in storage in the shed. And there they are. The trays they're sat on are actually built specifically to store apples, and I was fortunate enough to be offered them by the lady up at Bigswear. She had them in one of her old sheds, and they don't store apples anymore, so she said, would you like them, and I took them. Absolutely fantastic. So we'll see how they how long they store. And I've got more potatoes above them. I've got potatoes everywhere. Of course, not only that, but I've got hanging brassicas and 3 more pumpkins. What a year for pumpkins. Now, I hope you'll forgive me, but I'd like to talk about a slightly delicate matter, and it's one that for some reason modern society is reluctant to talk about, it's because we've become so sanitised and soft and detached from nature. And that is one of human waste. So if you are of a delicate, gentle nature, perhaps you'd like to fast forward through this next 5 minutes. I have seen quite a lot of content on YouTube. I have to say it's mostly from North America, where the off-grid lifestyle is far more prevalent, and I think it's a lot easier. They've got so much more land. But this principle of permaculture and of sustainability, you know, sustainability is one of those words that is bandied about nowadays. Most of us don't know what it means, and it's used far too readily. But the whole point of, or the ambition of permaculture is that your property, your farm, your small holding is a circle. Nothing comes in, nothing comes out. So you harvest your own rainwater, you create your own compost, the food you grow, you eat, etc., etc. And I think, you know, human waste is part of that. Now, I happen to have known long before I had an allotment that human waste was has been used for millennia, for thousands of years. Ever since we learned to squat and do our business, we've been using that material for beneficial uses. I'll give you a little bit of background if you're still with me. Urine and faeces have been used for many uses over thousands of years. The Romans used to clean and whiten their teeth with their own urine. And again, you know, you'll be sitting there going, oh, but man has been doing it for thousands of years. It's only in the last 100, 200 years we've become so delicate. On Royal Navy ships of the line back in the day, men had to pee in a very large barrel. Urine was valuable. That barrel was guarded day and night by a Royal Marine. And when the captain of the ship deemed it appropriate that they would have a wash day, because you know, captain of a Royal Navy ship didn't want washing hanging on the lines and the ropes. When the ship was in port, it wasn't becoming of a Royal Navy ship. But when they were out at sea and becalmed, etc., he would declare it a laundry day, and that barrel of urine was used to wash the sailors' clothing. It has been used to tan and soften leather for thousands of years. It's been used to cure tobacco leaves, so you could smoke it. And it was a key ingredient in the early days of gunpowder. Now, this is the really fascinating bit. If you pick up a packet of fertiliser in a garden centre and you read what it contains, listen to what urine contains. Ammonia, sulphate, phosphate, chloride, magnesium, calcium, potassium, sodium, uric acid and urea. Our human urine contains everything that man-made and organic fertilisers contain. You know, absolutely. And yet with all that in it, it's still 95% water. I find that fascinating. So how do you use your own urine? Well, I'm going to show you in a moment how I harvest mine. And again, I did tell you to fast forward if you're not interested. So, to use it as a compost accelerator, which is what I've been doing with it for 8 years, you just put it on your compost heaps or your leaf mould neat. As a general garden fertiliser, you use it in a ratio of 10 parts water, 1 part urine. And for young plants, a little less, so 20 parts water, 1 part urine. Now, I understand it's a lot easier for us chaps, but there's no reason why women shouldn't do the same. So, here's a slight aside, which, you know, I find quite interesting. Now, I only do this at my allotment. If I tried to introduce this in my house, the long-haired Sergeant Major would pull rank on me and I'd be put firmly in my place. But actually, to me, this makes perfect sense. An average single toilet flush uses about 13.5 litres of water. Now, we're on a meter, a water meter. 13.5 litres of fresh, clean water every time you press that button or pull the handle. So the average daily amount used in one family toilet is 71 litres of clean water per person, per day. And you were just washing away a perfectly usable resource, not just the valuable water, but what goes in the toilet. Now, one word of caution on that is that if you're taking any pharmaceutical products, they contain nasty chemicals, which has to make you wonder why you would use them. But they do contain some pretty nasty chemicals that, before you use it on your plants, I would recommend you doing a bit further research. But for those of us who are not, it's a perfectly usable resource. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how I use it right now. Now again, I repeat, I am fully aware that I am upsetting some people's gentle, delicate nature, but it did come with a warning. So that funnel affair which comes off that hook, I pee into that. Where does that go? So it's a highly complex system. That hose exits a tiny little hole in the wall of the shed and goes into one of those old fertiliser buckets with a lid, and I can sort of judge when I think it'll be full. It takes a few weeks to fill because I don't use it that often. So that bucket then goes on my compost and my leaf mould, 1 to 1, completely neat. And you know, it smells for maybe half an hour, but then the smell dissipates, and all that goodness goes into my allotment compost. Simple. Right, so now to the more serious part of that equation, the solid human waste. Now, I have a thing here called a luggable loo. I bought it on Amazon, it's a few quid, and I've had it years, and I took it on my canoeing trips. My dad, who, you know, just physically, because he was quite elderly, you know, he just couldn't squat over a hole in the ground, which is, you know, the usual way of doing your business in the wild. And of course, when I took my wife and my daughter, something a little more civilised for them. And I keep it up here now, and when we have family days up here, you know, they won't thank me for mentioning it, but when the ladies, if they need the loo, I mean, there's a farm shop 5-minute walk away, so, but it's, you know, nobody wants to walk all the way down there just to do a wee. So in the past they've used this, and once again, when, you know, the next day I come back up the allotment and I walk down here with that and I pour the wee on the compost heaps. Nice and simple. However, having done a little more research and looked at what happens in people's motorhomes and off-grid, etc., again, it's just another resource. So what a lot of people do is, and they do this in their homes, on their allotments, in their kitchen gardens, etc. They have an outbuilding, a toilet, and in it they have a compostable toilet. Now there's all sorts of variations, you can look at them, but I think what I'll do is I'll use this, and I have found that on Amazon they sell bags, biodegradable bags that you can put inside this. Then you use it for all your solid waste, and then that can be used to compost. Now, of course, there are issues with human pathogens in the waste, and nobody wants to be putting human feces on their fruits and vegetables. There's no reason why you shouldn't. It's just, you know, it's a mental thing we have nowadays in today's over-delicate society. But what I'm going to do, and I'm going to copy some of the homesteaders in the US I've watched, I'm going to separate one compost bay. And, you know, occasionally I have had to use it. And all I've done in the past is I've taken it home and I've put it down the outside. We've got a toilet in the back garden, and I flush it down, you know, in the normal fashion. But I'm not going to do that in future. I have collected some sawdust. I've got 3 very large bags of sawdust from the Biggs Weir estate, from his wood processor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep that with a scoop, and I'm going to put one of those bags in, put some sawdust in, and then anytime I have to use this for solid waste, once you've finished, you cover your product with sawdust. That suppresses any smell, and then over the weeks, however long it takes, once it gets fairly full, I will take that bag and I will put it in the dedicated compost bay. I will then put some normal allotment, degradable green stuff, brown stuff, whatever, normal compost material on top to cover it. And then that will build up like a lasagna. And that bay will be left, once it's full, for a full year. And that is enough time for any pathogens or bad stuff to dissipate and disappear. Then I would use it on, not so much on the fruits and vegetables, but I'll use it around as a mulch around the trees. That's what I think I will do with it. I don't really want to put it on the fruits and vegetables. Maybe I'm just as delicate as everyone else, but there's just something, you know, that's a barrier to doing that. So I know it's a delicate subject. I don't think I've ever heard it on anyone else's YouTube channel, but it's another resource. And it horrifies me how much water we use in our domestic toilets. You know, when we don't have to. We simply don't have to. Anyway, mildly interesting. I hope it hasn't upset you too much, but that's what I'm going to do. Looks like I'm going to get a good harvest after all. Sometimes things can't be explained on an allotment. Now, right in the background is the last of my pumpkins. As I say, I'm taking them to the shop today. Best crop of pumpkins by far I've ever had, and the largest, uniformly huge. Fantastic. But growing in the same beds, being watered at the same time, in the same soil, was my butternut crop. And if I say that they are uniformly, and there's the piece de la resistance, the worst, smallest, perfectly formed crop of butternuts I've ever had. Can anyone explain that? I mean, luckily in this bed of gourds there are more butternuts, and from what I can see in amongst the decaying leaves, they're a little more considerable. But yeah, odd and quite interesting. I have found myself developing an interest in propagating plants. So these three here are blackberries, which I explained in my previous video. The leaders of the canes touch the ground, unknown to me. A couple of months later they've put down roots and I've simply potted them up, and I'm hoping in the spring I'll see signs of growth. That one there is a blackcurrant, which again self-seeded in between my 3 blackcurrant plants, so I've taken it out of the ground, potted it up, and we'll see how it develops. And this one here, again, self-seeded, no credit to me. Gooseberry, dug it out of the ground, and I've cut off at the very base the other branches that were growing, and I've trained that one straight up. And I'm going to try and grow that as a standard. So as it gets to up about here, I shall nip out the leader, and hopefully you'll get multi-stems coming off it, which will develop it in a sort of lollipop shape. I'm not doing that for any other reason than just developing an interest in espalier and creating fruit trees, etc., in the form I want. I'd love to have another one to do a fan against a wall, but that's for another plant. Well, a lovely little crop of carrots, and my award for Carrot of the Year goes to that. Best one I've grown this year. Fantastic. Well, I can't believe I'm still picking good cucumbers, but a modest little crop, the cucumbers for juices and the carrots and parsnips for dinner tonight. Not the best parsnips I've ever grown, but I've looked in the tubs and there are much bigger ones there. But Cheryl's always complaining that the fruit and veg I grow is too big, so she can't level that at those parsnips. Another day bites the dust. Thanks for joining me. I hope my talk of human waste didn't put you off. Interestingly, the whole subject of using waste, human waste, in gardening it's called Humanure. So manure with HU on the front of it, which I think is quite a nice play on words. Enough said. But yeah, good day. The plot is tickety-boo. It's where it needs to be. First harvest of parsnips, not particularly impressive, but I've had a look in the other tubs. They look a bit more impressive in there. Hopefully Cheryl can use the ones I've got. So yeah, a good day. I think I'll be around next Sunday. Yeah, we'll be around next Sunday, and then the weekend after that, Carl and I think it's that weekend, we're going canoeing in Scotland. Really looking forward to that. I haven't done that since before COVID, so can't wait to get the canoe wet. Hopefully not Carl and me. So I will hopefully see you again next weekend. So until then, thanks for joining me. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye for now.